Hey, welcome everybody. Great to see you. We have a real special podcast for you all today, and invited to the studio via the internet is my very good friend and yours, Olivier Melnick. Olivier, it's just terrific to have you here with me today. What a blessing it is, and we're going to talk about some real serious matters. But we also have so much hope at the same time. So
Amen.
Let's talk.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you. Let's talk about this, Olivier. Just what this day represents. Take it away.
Okay. Well, there's two dates on the calendar that are used to commemorate the catastrophe, the Shoah in Hebrew, the Holocaust. And that's Yom HaShoah, which is around, changes, but it's around April, May in Israel. That's when everything comes to a standstill for 2 minutes. And then you've been there, and I've been there when it happens. It's very, very eerie, very, very, it's very different. And there's a lot of other programs happen there. But then started in 2005, this new date was picked up, which is today, basically January 27th. I believe it's based on the anniversary. In 2005, it was based on the anniversary of the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau. And so they picked that date for that reason, which makes sense. And it became known as International Holocaust Memorial Day. So this is for anybody in the world outside of Israel, and to commemorate the Holocaust and the loss of the 6 million Jewish people and a grand total of 12 million people. Too often, we do remember, when people remember the 6 million, they also need to remember the other 6 million other people on top of the Jewish people. It's a total of 12 million. But the Holocaust is mostly known for the carnage against the 6 million Jewish innocent victims. So that's the January 27th every year.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Actually, I want to ask you a few. I want to ask you, go back into the history of your grandfather, and being in France in the Holocaust. But as I look at things that are happening right now, certain countries that are talking about, they're saying, hey, I can think of Canada, for example, that is saying things like, I've actually seen one of their commercials, hey, we can assist you with death. This is the correct way to go out if you've become a burden on society because you're sick or something like that. And the commercial I saw just put this incredible spin on it to make it seem it's lovely if you have an assisted suicide, for example. And then, so we're watching this take place where we're seeing different elements of coming against the homeless people in the Western world, America, Canada. We're watching it and hearing comments that people are making. And when I think back to the days of Hitler, one of the things he did, they started to clean up Germany and the handicapped, the homeless, and so forth. And it progressed from there to the Jewish people. So I already hear this type of conversation taking place in the Western world. I also look at what's happening with anti-Semitism. There's no doubt two things are happening right now, two different religious groups. The evangelical Christian is now being labeled as a serious problem. And there is a soft persecution that's happening. And with the Jews, I'm watching this serious step up, an increase of anti-Semitism against the Jews at the same time. So we have this in the backdrop, the problems with the undesirables of society, and then remembering what history was. History repeats itself. So you're seeing that same type of thing develop?
Yeah. I mean, it is absolutely, Tom, right on point there. Hitler started by developing a program of euthanasia for, handicap. Back then, they called them retarded. They didn't call them handicap. handicapped people and to get rid of them. But that was in a sense, it was to get people used to the idea of sifting through society and going like, all the undesirable. We'll start with the ones that most people would not have an issue with, would not disagree with, and you get them used to the idea of euthanasia and killing people, and then the end result a few years later was the Holocaust. So I can definitely see some parallels, absolutely. And and then what's very scary, Tom, is that a couple of years ago, I don't have the date, I have it on my screen here, but there was a survey that was taken in America, and the numbers, I'll just read you some of the stats, and that will explain to you why people are either not taking the Holocaust seriously, not remembering, not doing anything. 63% of the respondents were not aware that 6 million Jews had been killed, with 36% believing only 2 million or fewer had been murdered. Almost half of the respondents could not name one single concentration camp or ghetto where the Jews were taken during the Holocaust. 11% believe that Jews caused the Holocaust and blamed them for it. 12% don't think they've heard the word Holocaust before, and 10% said the Holocaust never happened. So you have that group of people, and I would say it's I think it was the age group was 18 through 39. So it's closer to next generation, and that's where we are right now. We are seeing a push for the events to take place again, like you just mentioned, and the other side of the coin is people that don't know what happened in the first time in history. So you know about it, I know about it, our audiences know about it because we keep talking about it, and we should. But even the vast majority of Christians, Tom, they don't have a clue. They don't know.
No, they don't. And, churches won't even talk about it. And then you throw in replacement theology, and they won't even allow a conversation like that. I mean, I look at this, what we're talking about here, and in our society, can you even talk about these things? Because they don't want you to talk about these things. It's either too offensive just because for whatever reason, or they're saying, I don't want to talk about that because they moved on from it. Or, plus the narrative that is growing is there was no such thing as a Holocaust.
And, Tom, here's one thing to think about. Why is it that the Holocaust is not really discussed, at least by all those who don't like the Jewish people? Because the Holocaust, once you look at the Holocaust historically, which of course we know it happened. I mean, we'll talk about my grandfather in a little bit, 1 of 6 million. But the Holocaust, really, the only result you get from looking at the Holocaust historically and factually is that the Jewish people were victims. But that does not play well in modern day narrative, because today the Jewish people have to be painted as perpetrators. So if anybody has a heart softened towards the victims of 75, 80 years ago, that's not going to play well into the narrative of the perpetrators against the Palestinians.
No, I was watching a video just this week, and it was the old song in the area of what we would call Judea and Samaria, the world will call the West Bank, and it was that old song, from the mountains to the sea,
Palestine shall be free.
Yeah, and they're marching and singing that, and this is being pushed. Netanyahu is now prime minister. There's all kinds of things that are developing because of this. So we're watching this increase. And then it was also just, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, Netanyahu said, hey, I believe that there's going to be a great aliyah coming from the West to Israel. Now, he said this based upon, as I read what he said, upon the economy of Israel being the strongest economy in the world, which I'm pretty sure it is. But I look at it as being very concerning with just the increasing anti-Semitism. Now, I believe, Olivier, the real increase in anti-Semitism is going to happen after the rapture, because really the protection from the rest of the world that Israel really has, I believe, it's those who believe in the Bible.
Yeah.
The believe the Old Testament, understand and believe God had made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's people like us, people like our viewers, that are the ones that are spiritually salt and light, and providing a spiritual protection. When
Right.
that is gone, this will increase, and the enemy has his sights on the Jewish people and Israel, and it will fulfill last days prophecies. But Yeshua is coming back, and the Jew is not going to disappear.
No, absolutely. And in my I have a book coming probably in the next months or so, and the normalization of anti-Semitism. And I talk about what you just said because I'm as far as I can tell, I'm the only one in this field who has seen the new anti-Semitism develop into what I call end times anti-Semitism. But even after that, just like you mentioned, there is new anti-Semitism where the Jews are the victims are turned into the perpetrators and the occupiers, and we're living through that right now. But then since 2012, we've seen that this end times anti-Semitism, which is kicking up a notch, where actually Jews are being killed again, and that's what we're seeing. But like you just said, there's one more, which is what I call tribulation anti-Semitism, and that's the absolute most horrible one, where, according to Zechariah 13:9, 8 and 9, 2/3 of the Jewish people will perish, and so that's what's coming, and unfortunately, we're seeing an increase of that. And when Netanyahu says that the Jews are going to go back to Israel because of Israel's economy, from your standpoint and mine, we might see this, maybe we appreciate the thought, but I think we might think it's a little naive, because I think they're going to go back because it's going to be the only place in the world where they're going to feel safe.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Because I mean, really, as you know, we see all the dynamics in the United States that are pretty rough in certain places. Not Texas as much as California, or Florida seems to be doing great. So yeah, okay, let's say the economy is doing better in Israel. How many people are really going to relocate from Los Angeles or Miami to Israel when they've got they've got homes on beaches, and the weather and all that? So I think it's going to be what you said is going to cause this.
It's going to be the anti-Semitism, and I mean, not the only reason, but let's face it, Tom. Moving to Israel, for anybody, any Jew in the world. I mean, if I was to uproot my family and move to Israel today, I'd have to, I don't know Hebrew, for conversation, so I would have to learn Hebrew through the Ulpan program. I would have to, I know how to drive in Jerusalem because I was born in France, and the most important part of a car, in the French car, is the horn, which is the same in Israel. It's the same in Israel. So.
Oh man, between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, it is the horn. It's my wife's favorite part. And I told her, listen, you can't honk in America anymore. People are going to kill you. There's road rage.
But in Israel, if you don't honk, you're dead. So yeah.
She's excited every time we go to Jerusalem. She's like, I can honk here.
So yeah. So I think that it's not easy. So even if the economy is good, it's expensive to live in Israel. Everything is, Americans are not used to it, but everything is smaller. America, we have so much room, to drive, to park, to store stuff in our garages.
Yeah.
In Israel, it's not exactly the same. And so, and in the language, so it's, the Jews are going back. How do we know the Jews are going back? Being for the economy or because of anti-Semitism? The number one reason is because we know the Bible tells us the Jews are going back. Yeah. They're going back in unbelief for the end times, right before the Valley of Dry Bones of Ezekiel.
Yep.
So we know they're going back, and we're living through that right now. And I think the Jews going back to Israel is one of the strongest prophecy of our times, because it keeps happening. And they're going in large numbers against all odds. And I just read today that Netanyahu, they're talking about expanding the settlements.
We live in very interesting days with all the dynamics of everything going on with the government in Israel right now.
Yeah,
the Temple Mount. Jerusalem is becoming this stumbling block. Ultimately, Zechariah 12 will be fulfilled later, but still we can see it increasing. Okay, let's go back a little bit further in history, back to the time of your grandfather and the Holocaust and the Nazis coming into France. Let's talk about that. And by the way, I want you to comment on this too.
Right.
You told me one time that the Nazis also confiscated bicycles.
Yeah.
And the reason was because the Jews be able to mobility. So I look at just certain things we see happening right now. We're being told you're going to be restricted to your neighborhoods. You're going to be you can't you got to stay within 15 minutes of your residence. It's a very interesting dynamic.
You don't reinvent how you control people. You just use different technology.
Great point.
So back in the days of my father and his father, and I'll tell you the story. My father was a teenager. He was like 17 during the war, 17, 18. And so he told me the story. He said, my dad, back in those days, they had those big transistor radios to listen to the radio, to listen to the messages from London, from, the General de Gaulle was like sending those messages and stuff. And so they were all listening to the radio to find out what was going on. Well, so the French police, actually not the Nazis, the French police who worked with from the Vichy government, they told the French people, and the Jewish people, you need to bring your transistor radios to the closest police station, and they're being confiscated. So they were like standing in line in front of the police station, bringing their transistor radio. So what happens is that once it's gone, then you have no idea what's going on. No TV, back in those days, no TV, no internet, no radio. So you're in your little, not quite yet a ghetto, but you're in your apartment, not knowing what's going on. And there's a curfew, so you can only go out so long. And then they say, well, we're going to need your bicycles. Cars, no gas, no cars, very few. So it was very, very rare. But a lot of people were going through with bicycles. We're going to need you to bring your bicycles. So the Jewish people had to bring their bicycles. And that's what my father told me. He said my dad went, but he was good friends with the police station chief in his district. So when he came with his radio, he brought it, and the police chief looked at him from a distance because they used to play cards every week. They were in the first war in 1914, 1918 together, my grandfather on my dad's side. And so he knew the police chief from being in the war. So when the chief saw him coming with his radio, he looked at him and he went like this. Don't come, go away. I don't want to see you. In other words, keep your radio. I don't know if he kept it or not, but he was trying to help a friend. He was trying to help his war buddy. So they took the radios, they took the bicycles, and so you reduce mobility, you reduce communication. You basically, what you're doing is you're isolating people, and it's the beginning of a ghettoization of a certain segment of the population. That's what you see.
Beginning of ghettoization. It's just you'd mentioned it's just a different form of technology is how these things, the mobility, the ghettoization.
The same principle. Yeah. Limit. What if everything, if everything goes electric? You've mentioned that several times on your different networks and everything. If everything goes electric, it's a lot easier to turn a switch on and off than other options.
Yes, it is. Now, you had also mentioned to me before, I think it was your grandmother. Did she have to, I think it was your grandmother that moved, or was it your mom that moved, and she ended up not converting to Catholicism, but was taken in by a family? Yeah. Do
you want me?
Yeah. We're talking about this international.
Right. I would love it. It's appropriate. I'll make it quick because I think I've told part of the stories on your channel before, and there is a video on my YouTube channel. Shameless plug. On my YouTube channel, you could go at Olivier Melnick on YouTube, and you'll find me there. There's a video with the name of my mother is Evelyn, and if you type Evelyn in there, you'll find that 9-minute video on French TV with translation where what happened to her. And what happened to her is that when she was about 15. Living in the house that we just sold a few years ago, where I was born and grew up on the edge of Paris, the Gestapo came one night and asked her mother to tell them, two officers from the Gestapo, to tell them, where is your husband? We know he's hiding in the building. We were told he's hiding in the building. And my grandfather, Maurice Wansweig, was hiding indeed in the cellar, in the basement of the building, where they used to keep the coal for the stoves. He was there because he knew it was dangerous for him, because he was not there in France illegally, but he had not received his proper papers yet. He was a foreigner from Russia, a Jewish man from Russia, married to my grandmother, who was born in France, and he was in the process of getting his paper. It was just not the best time, 39 to 45, to ask for papers to make everything proper in France, or in Europe for that matter. So he was hiding to be safe. And my grandmother said, we don't know where he is. We can't tell you. He left. I can't help you. She lied, of course. And they said, we'll come back tomorrow. And if he is not coming with us, if you can't find him, we'll take you and your daughter. Now, my grandmother and my mom, her daughter, were French citizen, Jewish, but from France, born in France. So that would have been a little extreme, especially at the time it took place, which was the summer of 1942, when they were not really taking all Jewish people yet. They were taking the Jews that couldn't prove that they had lived in France, or, they were... They kept pushing, started with euthanasia, and then taking this, taking that. We take these Jews, those Jews, and eventually anybody remotely Jewish on 2 generations to the camps. But they were not yet taking those who were born in France, like my mom and her mother. But they threatened them with that. Well, she told my grandfather, and he said, well, I will go hide somewhere, and I'll let you know when it's safe. And that's when she said, they're coming back tomorrow, and if you're not here, they'll take Evelyn, my mother, and he said, well, I can't do that. I'll have to go with them. Don't worry, I'll come back. He went with them the next morning when they came to get him, and he never came back. So with all the research I've done, I noticed that every time I find something, and recently, just a couple of days ago, I was on the Yad Vashem site looking at some of the information they have on him, and it looks like he died within a week of being taken. So that to me, I'm not happy about it. I don't know if he heard anything about Yeshua. You never know, because they were believers in the camps, they were believers on the trains, they were believers everywhere. So I'm hoping, but the fact that he did not go through 2 years in the camps, and all those stories, and it, to me, the fact that he died within a week makes it a little easier. Not, it doesn't take away the drama, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's less suffering. I mean, you look at people who went to the camps and they're slowly starving to death, and then they became the Jews who had to work at the ovens and take bodies out. I mean, it's a horrific.
And you talk to survivors, and almost all of them will tell you the worst was not to die there. The worst was to survive, and then every night have the nightmares of what we went through. So I mean, it was very, 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 very unique in the history of mankind that way. And what happened to my mother is that I wrote an article on my site at newantisemitism.com on this man who actually did false papers, and he saved about 144,000 Jews. He was a Jew himself, and he did a lot of false papers. Most likely, my mother and her 2 cousins got their papers through him or his network during the war, and then they were sent to the south of France to hide on a farm in the southwest, right above the Pyrenees Mountains, between France and Spain. And my mother and her 2 cousins went to hide, and for like the last 2 years of the war, they stayed on that farm. And my mother, I have pictures of my mother dressed as a Catholic girl with a white outfit, getting ready to do our first communion, as they call it in France, for the Catholic Church, pretending she's a Catholic girl so that she could be roaming around freely in the village where she was hiding, which actually she didn't go out of the farm very much. But anyway, she survived because of that family. Their names is on the wall of remembrance at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. I found their name. They have become righteous among the nations, righteous Gentiles at Yad Vashem.
Wow. Just incredible true history, but watching things redevelop. I'm actually looking at a video from New York City It looks like it was just last week, and there in New York City, it's that same song. Uh,
Yeah.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. In
Well,
New York City.
I know. Here's the problem. I don't know if you saw this. There was an article in Moment magazine. Moment magazine is a Jewish magazine, and I think it was actually founded by Elie Wiesel, who the Holocaust survivor. And in that article, they were talking about what's happening on TikTok. There are young American, mostly girls, American teenagers who are putting makeup on their faces to look emaciated and to look very thin. And it's part of my article I just posted today. And some of the statements they make, they on their TikTok, they said, "I died in the Holocaust," or "I myself have been gassed over 6 million times." They're playing games with the concept of the Holocaust. They have no clue. They're clueless, but they look like they put the makeup on their face to look like they weigh like 40 pounds, like the way the people came out of the camps. And so the danger I see happening right now, it's threefold. It's this current generation is mocking the Holocaust. Then you have the survivors. I talked to a friend survivor in New York last night. She's 88 years old. She was in Theresienstadt camp, and she survived, and she's been speaking in a lot of places. So the survivors are dying because most of them are 90 and older. So the first-hand witnesses are gone. Within the next 5 years, I would say 95% will be gone, if not more. The new generation is mocking the Holocaust, making a joke of it online on TikTok and other networks. Nobody's saying anything. And then you've got the deniers rewriting, belittling, or diminishing, or just denying the whole Holocaust. And the less firsthand witnesses we have, and the more of a generation which is clueless, I gave you the numbers, and you see when they do on TikTok, then those who deny will have a fertile ground for their propaganda and their narrative. And I'd say if this keeps going this way, within the next 10 years, the vast majority of the global community will not even think anything of the Holocaust.
Nope.
That's why I thank God for people like you having me on your program regularly to remind the audience of that and to encourage our audience. Because there's there seems to be no hope. Well, there's hope for the Jewish people. There's hope for everybody through Yeshua, but to encourage our audience to speak to their Jewish friends about the only hope they have, which is Yeshua, the Messiah, Jesus. And to look at the bright side is that it's never too late to give your life to Jesus.
Amen. Even with your mom.
Yeah.
What a powerful just testimony there,
Well, she ended up giving her life to Yeshua.
Yeah.
A few years before she passed away, and she lived. She was 16. I told you that before, Tom, but I think it's worth repeating because that moment I will never forget. In 2015, when there was the hostage situation on the outskirts of Paris, in that kosher supermarket, which, by the way, I've been in that market because it's right by where my house used to be, and on the east side of Paris. So I've been there many times. And this hostage situation is developing. I'm watching from my home in Seattle, and I'm calling my mom, and I said, "Mom, stay home. I'm watching the news." She goes, "I know. Your sister called me. She told me to stay home." And here's my mother. At the time, she was 85, and then she starts crying on the phone, and I go like, "What's going on?" And then here's a woman who, when she was 15, saw the Gestapo come, knock on the door, and then take her dad. She never saw him again. Here's this 85-year-old woman who could not tell anybody she was Jewish until she was 50. A woman who never went downstairs in the cellar where her father hid from the Germans until he was taken. That cellar became like a storage unit for us. My whole life, she would always say, "Olivier, can you go get this? Can you go put that down?" She would never go down there. She was so scarred by what happened to her father. Here's this woman, age 85, crying on the phone, and she goes, "Olivier, are they coming back for us?" That was in 2015, and now we're in 2023, and it's worse.
It is worse. Wow, that's so powerful. Then she comes to know the Lord, and praise God for that. And
Yeah.
Olivier, listen, this is really what this is about. It's about reaching the world with the hope of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And also bringing the reminder to everybody who's watching, listen, we have the Bible to guide us. So don't believe all of the lies,
No.
the things that come across the news, the churches that say God is done with Israel. That is not what the Bible teaches. The whole counsel of God teaches God is not done with Israel. Jesus came the first time to forgive us of our sins. He's coming back. Israel will not be gone. Jerusalem won't be gone. The Jews won't be gone. With that, Olivier, we are out of time, but how can people get a hold of you?
Well, my website is newantisemitism.com, and I put I put all my information there. I post my my articles, and I also put a lot of videos daily, devotions, and weekly on end times, Israel, anti-Semitism, on my YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is called Olivier Melnick Today Through Jewish Eyes, but if you just go, the little @ symbol Olivier Melnick in YouTube, you'll find me, and that's where it's all there. And I invite you to come visit. There's a lot of teachings on there, not as many as Tom, because nobody does. Maybe one person does more videos than Tom. That would be James. But that's it.
James does about 100 times more than me.
Yes. But anyway, yeah, the people can come visit and subscribe, and after they subscribe to yours, of course. Thank you so much, Tom. You are such a blessing to me because you don't give up. You always invite me to speak on behalf of my people and to encourage people to love Israel, to love the Jewish people, and to be bold with them for such a time as this. Friends, we don't know how much time we have left. I'm not setting dates, but we really don't know how much time we have left. Don't be shy with the Jewish friends. Don't be shy with them. If you don't know how to talk to them, there is an email under each of my videos on my YouTube channel. Email me and ask me questions that will help you. I will equip you to reach out to your Jewish friends with the gospel of Yeshua.
Amen. Thank you very much, Olivier. Thank you, everybody, also for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you soon. God bless you.
Shalom.
Shalom.